所以我们早上是到这。跟大家报告一下哈，现在因为我们等一下要一排一排上去的关系，所以。方不方便这一排有贴纸的，我们往前补位好吗？好吗？如果您方便的话，我们这2排有贴纸的往前补位好吗？对，我们就可以让后面的人，我们就不用一直加椅子，不然我们现在后面一直加椅子啊。我们早上已经觐见过的，您可以往前坐好吗？尤其是这2排哦。这样的话呢，Tim 师兄就先暂时不用加椅子，因为这边空出来了哈。好，那么往前坐啊。那好。对，请普贤法义小组坐这边，普贤法义小组请来坐这边。好，我们等一下从这边开始。好，麻烦普贤法义小组坐这2排，谢谢。好，来普贤法义小组，对，好，请坐这边。好，我们普贤法义小组在这边哈。因为我们等一下就从这边开始啊，那边好像还可以。来，我们普贤法义小组请坐这边，这2排，从这排可以开始，这排空的可以开始哦，这排开始。好，我们好慢慢来，所以我们等一下就从这排开始，这样刚好很顺哈。好，来，那边还可以坐吗？那边大师姐，来，普贤法义小组坐这边哈，来。这边还可以，这一排也可以哈，我们这一排也可以，有空位都可以坐进去，来坐进去好吗？空位坐进去啊。好，我们好，所以我们现在普贤法义小组从哪里开始？这边开始吗？这边开始普贤法哈，所以这边。普贤法义小组在哪里？这2排哈。好，那现在请普贤法义小组，您先脱鞋子，然后脱鞋子5分钟之后，请您到这边排队好吗？我们普贤法义小组，请您脱鞋子之后5分钟就到这边排队哈。好，我们那场是禁语的。请普贤法义小组2分钟之后，您现在可以准备脱鞋子了哈。2分钟之后，请您就到这边来排队。您可以陆续。那请大家呢走路像踩在棉花上面，我们走路像踩在棉花上面。好，感恩。好，现在可以普贤法义小组，请您陆续慢慢的我们继续禅修持咒，慢慢的，请您往前排队啊。 边哄等一下仁波切进场呢，仁波切上座，请大家不要起立这是仁波切一再交代我们的。仁波切希望我们是保持禅修打坐心里呢看自己的心。看自己的心以及持咒，所以如果我们想要对仁波切做一个恭敬的顶礼，我们就继续持诵6字大明咒。您可以献可以献供，献您的画，献您的歌，献您的诗，但是请不要请仁波切签名因为仁波切年纪大了，眼睛也不太好了，所以请不要签书，就是不要签名，感恩。
Mane here on the microphone, I translate.
Yes, yes, yes.
And if not, then you have to tell me, please. Because
Okay.
if he speaks in the microphone, as I translate, I'm not supposed to. Then please tell me.
Yeah, we're supposed to. He should not use the microphone.
Is
So
it
we're supposed to
is it like
question.
a private thing?
Yeah, they don't want to make it being announced.
Please don't translate.
So this is a private question, which I will not translate, and I will continue with the next question. So please give an explanation on the name mantra of the Guru Yoga practice of yours. Whichever lama you practice, you can visualize that lama. All lamas should be seen as the same. The mind is the same. So regarding the name mantra to be recited, often it is abbreviated. So Mahaguru Jnana Siddhi Hong, so this is kind of a common guru mantra that can be applied to your guru But actually, actually it refers to bodhicitta. That's the actual guru. You can anyways apply this mantra to any guru. Mahaguru Jnana Siddhi Hong. So basically, you need to see all lamas as the same. If not, then disciples get into like beef with each other. So if you understand that the guru is bodhicitta, there is no conflict. The body is not the guru. The gurus have different bodies, but their mind is one and the same. And so that if you understand that, then there is really no difference or contradiction between any of the gurus. Many translators translate the sadhanas from English into Chinese. So most translations are done that way. So some say that before they translate, there's some obstacles, and there's no obstacles, and their mind is not tense or narrow. But then after they finish the translation, then all kinds of things happen. So then please speak about avoiding obstacles and difficulties in this regard. All conceptual virtues, actually there's nothing greater than translating the text. Actually the Buddha himself had said that the texts are more precious than the text, and the difficulty when it comes to translations of text is that if you have an intention of becoming famous or like being known for a great scholar, then you encounter difficulties. What's important is just to understand the meaning of what you are translating. So then you convey that the cause of happiness of all sentient beings, which is love and compassion. So this is what need to be conveyed. So once you understand the qualities of bodhicitta, it doesn't actually matter if you're Buddhist or not. The mind must have love if you want to be happy. So actually the meaning of the text that you're translating is significant, and of course because of that, if it is mistaken, it's a great fault. So when you translate from Tibetan to English, for example, you have to be really very careful and pay attention to each and every word. And so then there's also a mistake that could actually be in Tibetan, so you have to be very careful, because once it is translated, it will remain for many generations, and the benefit can be really incredible. But it's also very important to be very careful about the quality, because we do need merit until we attain enlightenment. And however long those texts then remain, the merit will be uninterrupted as it continues to benefit sentient beings. So the Buddha said that actually the words are more important than the form. And then when the disciples look at this text and read, for example, just one word about refuge, they will think about its meaning. It's not just about reading something, but they actually reflect upon the meaning. So therefore it is very significant.
见佛像的功德利益还要大。但是在翻译当中最难的一点就是什么？最难的就是在充实自己的学位的同时，认为自己非常厉害，然后志得意满，觉得这样子做我会变得名声非常大。这完全不是翻译本来应该要有的初衷。应该要晓得，真正能够给众生带来安乐跟饶益的是什么？是此心跟非心同的。借由佛陀跟佛陀的心意、佛陀的教法，我们能够给众生带来安乐跟安乐之因。所以，除了舍弃了慈悲心这一条路之外，绝对不可能给其他众生带来安乐跟佛果的。一定要了解。重点就是我们在翻译的时候，就必须要心里面心心念念的是它的意义，菩提心的意义。在这当中其实没有什么内道跟外道的差别，重点就是要怀着这一颗纯正的心。菩提心的动机、利他的心去做这件事情，那能够这样子去做的话，翻译是一件非常殊胜的工作。当然，如果没有正确的翻译，也是会有过失的。不管是翻译成什么样的语言，在藏文的编辑当中，藏文的文本也会有错，英文的译本也会有错，中文的译本同样会有错的。所以这个需要非常多的仔细的校对、仔细的考核，这些都是应该做的。那么，因为如果说我们把它印成白纸黑字开始流通以后，假使里面是有错误的，那这个错误也是会可能会延续几代人，它都是错误。所以这当然是有很大的利益的一件事情，但在从事的时候也是要相对谨慎很多，必须要仔仔细细的做。好，这如果是这样子的话，尽了这样的责任，那么作为一个翻译者，所承担的福德可以说是不可思议的。我们在行佛之前都需要有福德的，用这样子来饶益其他有情众生，确实能够为众生带来利益。因为身语的善法相对而言呢，它没有那么样的重要，就是能够给心带来改变的善法是特别重要的。所以比起修道佛身，修道佛像而言，翻译佛的语言是更加的重要的。那么当然，这当中可能会有一些错误。当读者在阅读的时候呢，如果发现这个文意是有错的，就不要拘泥在文字上面，应该去通晓它背后的意涵是什么。主要当你遇到有这样子错误的内容的时候呢，作为读者就从意义上去受持，非常非常的重要。
Some people want to learn to become a translator or learn how to become a tanka painter, and they like to go around and have fun with their parents and family, but they want to do everything, but they don't have time. So what can they do? So of those things, what's most important is the translation of text. Of course, tankas also have a benefit, because in the old days, that's it's a very important tradition. But if actually when you paint the tanka, the form of the deity has to be very beautiful and very detailed, because that opens the mind when people see it. When you see the form, the mind opens. When you hear the words, then you understand the meaning of karma and so on, and the channels of wisdom and awareness open in your mind. So you should not just draw a sketch or something, but if you paint it, it has to be really very, very nice and according to the old tradition and very detailed. So if you paint, it has to be very beautiful and very pleasing to the eye. So with whatever you do, you're very careful, but it's fine to do that. There's nothing wrong with that.
言的话，语言方面，因为这个唐卡会给他对于业力因果的相关道理会有兴致，让自己的内心呢也能够逐渐的开启智慧。所以透过唐卡来让人去入跟佛法的连接是很好的。当然这是从过去古代的一些画师他们很讲究的一种就是非常讲究传统，非常讲究经典对于正规做法来讲，如果能够按照那个方法去学习并且绘制的话，这个做法当然是非常好，而且是有不可思议的工作魅力。
Regarding the liberation by seeing mantra, is it still useful after one has died? So it's fine to put it on a dead body, but it's better to put the liberation by touch on the body, and then it is burned together with the body. So all kinds of holy substances can be placed together with the body. For example, this wristband contains inside the liberation by wearing and the liberation by seeing. So this is actually very useful.
在死的时候当舍利穿。那么人就是说死的话，最主要是穿那个，最主要是给他放那个束紧钵。那因为主要是因为我这个衣服它是地方材质，也不太适合火化。那么主要这个原因。那么再来就是像我们手上这个剑节多手环的内层就是束紧钵。对王者来讲的话，主要是给他放束紧钵是比较重要的。
Some new Buddhist practitioners, and they just took the refuge vow, and after that, they still don't really understand the view and the practice of Buddhism. So how can they engage in practice? So practice mani and supplicate to Chenrezig and practice love and compassion. When you take the refuge vow now, if you don't understand the meaning, the imprint is in your mind, and you will understand in future life. So for example, even if a bird hears it, for example, or even if a bird sees a liberation by seeing mantra, in the future the bird takes birth as a human being and encounters the Dharma and enters the Dharma, cultivates bodhicitta, and slowly throughout many lifetimes they attain enlightenment. But once they have seen it once, this imprint is already placed into their mind, and this imprint will will draw them, pull them up from lifetime to lifetime. So that's why the liberation by seeing mantra is so important. So the Buddha provided some methods for those without any other method, the liberation by seeing, touching, and hearing, for example. Or, for example, the Mani mantra is the liberation, the liberation by hearing, or liberation by seeing, for example, is, for example, when whatever liberation they come into contact with, it's just like giving them the refuge vow. So basically, they are receiving a way, kind of a direction to the path to enlightenment. It's just like a guide when you're traveling on a road in a car. You know where to go, so it pulls you into this right direction. So some people want to do the smoke offering, but they don't have the transmission. Can they do it? Anybody can do it, because this smoke offering is like an act of generosity. A transmission is more like an explanation, but even without that, you can practice it. As long as you have love and the wish to benefit sentient beings, you can do it, and then it's more powerful. But even if you just think about your own benefit, you can still actually, it's still, generally speaking, okay to to do this practice, but the benefit is just often greater when you receive a transmission. But anyone can do it at any time.
网络的影片来学习呢？明确的回答是说，烟供是一种布施的修法，不管今天有口传没有口传，都是可以做的。那最重要的就是你要去学它的道理，它的教学。你能够学到教学的话，就有没有口传这不重要。那么教学如果说没有办法看到实体的教学的话，也可以透过网络的教学影片来学习，这个是可以的。最重要的就是你要带着慈心跟悲心来修持，这是格外重要的。你如果心里面在做烟供的时候，心里面想的是我一定要饶益其他有情众生，这样的话所修的功德利益大一点。当然你也可以只想着自己，比如说我为了自己修烟供也会有利益，就是比较相对比较小一点。只要你想要这样的修，不一定说非得有口传才行。
Some people, they don't have a lot of courage and determination in the Dharma practice. They don't have this great motivation. So how can we cultivate such courage and determination? So actually, in terms of preliminaries, the preliminaries is bodhicitta, the wish to benefit sentient beings. That has to arise first. And for this, first you have to apply a method so it arises and then not to allow it to decline. So you think about the 4,000 eternal mind and think that when I die, by all means, I must be able to bring love and compassion with me. So the altruistic mind is the actual preliminaries. It is the antidote to self-grasping, the benefit of self and other. The real benefit is wishing for the benefit of others. If you wish for your own benefit, it is like mixing medicine with poison. That's the greatest poison, is this thought of me. When you're eating food, there's a lot of like bugs or like organisms in your body. If you think I'm eating for them, it becomes an act of bodhicitta. But if you think I'm eating for me, then you are placing some samsaric imprint into your mind stream. So this is the skillful means taught by the Buddha.
需要运用方法来示范这一点。如果没有办法产生想要饶益其他众生的心，就想办法让它升起，已经升起了，要让它不对视。这些方法如何开口呢？就是要做自然心，要去做思维的修饰。你应该思维着，我如果今生不利他，今生不发菩提心的话，将来死了就没有机会走向解脱了。所以这个时候无论如何都应该要发起利他心。这样的利他心是一切修行的前提。那么，因为他没有把自我放在前面，而是为了要使自己跟他人同时谋得利益，所以这样的发心去行善，这个样子可以激励我们的修行。否则的话，如果只是想到自己，就是最严重的过失、最麻烦的一件事情。比方说，今天同样是吃饭，如果你吃饭的时候想着我肚子里面有很多的寄生虫是仰赖我的身体而过活的。这个不是只有我要吃，我也要饶益他们。这样吃饭的话，就不会把那个自我的习气非常的强化了，而是也能够做到利他。否则的话，你只是我把这顿饭给吃了，我吃这顿饭，这样子的话，心里的习气、自我的习气就会被强化，那个就是最糟糕的事情。所以呢，要让自己的修行的意志能够坚定，然后就要强化那个要饶益其他有情众生的心态。
So when the person meditates, then often suddenly when he says pet, so it comes kind of naturally. He doesn't actually even intentionally do it. So this pet just comes out of him on its own without him thinking about it. So what does that mean? That's fine. When thoughts arise, and you say pet, immediately the thought is shattered, or also hung shatters the thought. When a thought arises and you think hung, it's like it purifies the mind. That's fine. But then the family members are a little bit disturbed by that. So of course you have to be careful when it comes to shouting a pet. But you can shout the pet in your mind. You don't actually have to proclaim it out loud.
其实会非常的好，因为当我们不管是念中配或者是后，就是猛然的这样喝一次的时候，会让自己的猫腻能够暂歇，所以对自己的心理是有帮助的。可是如果可以的话，不要当做生命里，比方说你自己要心里面，要念出配或者是后的时候，就在心里面就好，不是非得念出声音来。
Hong is better because it's easy to just think of it in your mind. You don't have even to say Hong out loud. You just mentally recite Hong Hong. But you can do pet too. ，After you've taken the Bodhisattva vow, according to Rinpoche's teachings, like throughout the 3 times of day and 3 times of night, you have to cultivate loving kindness and compassion. But how do you do that? So throughout the 3 times of day and night, you have to remember loving kindness and compassion. Whoever you love the most, first you think of that person, and then you think all sentient beings are like that. If it's your mother, then everyone is your mother, and so on. Loving kindness and compassion destroys self-grasping of self and others. So think of love, or think of the Guru, or think of the Buddha. They all have the nature of bodhicitta. Mindfulness becomes bodhicitta. That's the ultimate bodhicitta. Loving kindness and compassion is relative bodhicitta, which is also inseparable from mindfulness. When a thought arises, immediately be mindful of it. Think of the Guru, think of Hong. Then actually there is no division between the 2 kinds of bodhicitta. You can, but you can, for example, just meditate in this way on loving kindness and compassion. Recite Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Every time you wake up, remember Shinrezik. That is, his nature is love. Every time you remember Shinrezik, that is love. And whenever you encounter an obstacle to your Bodhisattva vow, recite a few Om Mani Padme Hum, the essence of which is love. And this is how you restore your love and avert the obstacle. In Rinpoche's life story movie, it says that Rinpoche doesn't actually lie down to sleep. So how can we accomplish that so we don't have to lie down and sleep? I do sleep, but it's very light. All day long I have to go around and do things, so I can't meditate. So that's why at night I meditate. So I do sleep, but it's very light, a very very subtle sleep. But I sit like this. This is how for 10 years I actually insisted on sleeping like this. I do sleep, it's not like I don't sleep, but I'm still able to continue to spin the prayer wheel, because when I really fall asleep, then the prayer wheel falls down. Then I wake up again. I do sleep, but it's very light. But do we also can we also train in this way? And of course, anyone can train in this way, of course. This is actually very significant for recognizing the dream state. If you don't have a meditation belt, that the meditation belt is actually very useful. Then it supports your back, and when you otherwise you would need a back support, and also it helps you to have your spine straight, your back straight. Um, so when the spine is crooked, when the back is not straight, then the mind will not be clear. It's important for the back to be straight. Once you lean back like that, then it's gone. Then the mind is not clear. Then the mind is lax. So sit like this, straight. It's important that the spine, the back is straight. With the legs, you can sit whichever way you wish. So if we train in this way, isn't that bad for the body? Isn't this harmful to one's health if one sits like this and sleeps like this? Because also you can't sleep very deep. But Rinpoche says the mind will not be distracted. So we practice Om Mahung or Hung Hung Hung. The mind will not be distracted. When you fall, you sleep, but you know that you are sleeping. So there is the white, the red, and the blackness. So you recognize all of that. You know that I'm sleeping, subtle sleep. Even if you go into a deep sleep state, you know that you're in the deep sleep state. There is awareness of everything. Some people first recognize the dream state, and some people actually even can sustain a clear mind in the deep sleep state. But of course, that is extremely difficult. But we can understand the dream. We can recognize the dream state. Know that this is the dream, and when you know the dream state, you know that it is not real. It is like an illusion. In the 6 yogas of Naropa, this is what we learned. This is the dream yoga and the illusory body yoga. After we die, the mind continues on in an illusory body and wanders around all over the place. Some people don't have devotion. Some people can't spin a prayer wheel, a little lazy. So can they also use a kind of a standing wheel? But Rinpoche said if you spin a prayer wheel, actually the virtue of body, speech, and mind are complete. Of course, if you have other things to do, you don't have to do it. But if you don't have anything to do, or if you're an older person and so on, then it would be very good to spin a prayer wheel because the mind remains undistracted. So slowly, it's very light and small, then it spins on its own. But the moment you fall asleep, it falls down, so it wakes you up again. So the main benefit is that it benefits you to not be distracted. But anyways, if it is okay that you can use an electric prayer wheel. If you can't do it, then Rinpoche says yes, that's okay. But of course, if you spin it with your actual hand, then there's is even a greater benefit.
各种法门，就是说电动转地门当然也是有功德利益的，只是它不像自己手去转那个利益，是身口意三门都在行善。手摇转地门的好处就是在于它同时可以做到身口意三门都在行善，而且让心不涣散。尤其像有些老年人，他们年纪大了，不需要做特别多的事情，如果手上能够有个转地门的话，随时都能够让自己的身口意三门都在行善，是非常有意义的事情。但是在使用的时候，最重要是不要分心。你分心的话呢，你虽然在转，可是可能就可能写的就跑下去了，因为根本就没有在管自己的心，你就让自己的心涣散掉。这样的话，转的功德力就没那么大。那至于这些肢体不方便的人，还是可以使用电动转地门，所以他们利益没有像刚刚所说的这么大。就像他这个
So some people consider like statues and like holy substances and blessings and so on, but they don't respect it. But then we always need to sustain as a kind of a divine pride, a confidence of being the deity. But then even like the legs are the deity, so then what is disrespectful if everything is the deity? So there seems to be just a little bit of a contradiction between, first of all, you don't want to disrespect or put blessed substances on your legs, but then you visualize yourself as a deity. But so the Rinpoche says the reason why we shouldn't touch with our legs is because of mindfulness. We don't want to be unmindful, but because the 5 elements are the deity, in essence everything is pure, of course. But then the reason why we don't put it below our feet is because we do it when we are unmindful, and unmindfulness really is disrespectful. So it's not really about respect or disrespect. It's more about mindfulness and unmindfulness. From the side of the deity, it makes no difference. They have no need for respect. The 5 elements are the deity. Earth is also the deity. And then we couldn't even walk on earth. We want to respect the deity. All the 5 elements are the deities, and we are still using the 5 elements. When we practice a yidam deity, we have received empowerment and transmission. Can we practice the same yidam but from a different lineage? I said, yes, it's fine. You can practice any sadhana, any lineage, because the deity is still the same. Any kind of yidam deity, even if you have 100 deities, their essence is love. That's most important. And whoever has love becomes a wisdom being. When there is self-grasping, one becomes a worldly god. A deity becomes a worldly god. Mainly, one needs love. But you can practice any sadhana, anything that you find beneficial. It's good to study well the extensive text to understand the meaning, and then once you do that, you can also just practice the concise sadhanas.
都可以的，只要任何一个本尊法，你可以说不同的宗派的仪轨都是可以。重点在于，即便是100个本尊，它的核心都在于慈心跟悲心。有慈心悲心去修持本尊法门，它就成为智慧本尊的法门。如果你没有慈悲心，带着我执去修的话，你所修的就是世间天尊的法门，仅此而已。所以只要有慈悲心，修任何一个长久法门、成就法都是可以的。但是你要修那个越轨之前，好好的对广轨有一个充分的认识，好好学习广轨之后，修越轨就可以。
How do we practice the union of the sutras and the tantras? The refuge vow is the sutras, individual liberation, bodhisattvas, and then there's the Vajrayana. Actually, we practice it all together at one time, in one session.
下一个问题是说显密如何同时修习？就是说，皈依是属于理解多的教法，它也是显宗；然后八独一心呢是属于菩萨圣的教法，也是显宗；然后密宗的这些持咒等等的修法是属于密法。这三个结合起来说是就叫做就是显密融通的修法。我们一空间给你显到的我到底非常的多了。
Sometimes we take do like a mo and they take money for that, like a divination. Is that okay? But it's okay to do a mo because some people like need some kind of guidance on the path. But then the person who's doing the mo, the divination, must have a good motivation. If they have a wish to benefit sentient beings and they do a more divination, actually it's a encouragement to practice virtue. It tells you what to do, like do this and do that. Actually, when it encourages you to practice virtue, it is a good thing. But of course, if it says like, oh, there's a demon, there's a spirit, and you're being harmed, of course that's not necessary. And often that's also contrary to karma. That can cause harm. So if they have this a negative intention and of trying to gain something, then of course that's a great fault. The cause is your own action, and the condition are like demons and obstacles. This is what the divination, the more introduces you to. It is because you have a karmic connection to certain beings that you begin to think about something. But actually, ultimately, it all comes from karma. No black magician can cause any harm towards you if you wouldn't have that karmic connection that karma already created previously.
果，但你还是要晓得这个结果来自于过去的烦恼，它是烦恼结生的果。如果这样子去跟对方解释你所打的这个卦或者所算的命的话，是对对方来说是有帮助的。
So when I supplicate or meditate to the Guru, then the devotion arises naturally sometimes. But sometimes it goes away on its own, so what can I do? So in the past it was a bit better, a bit stronger. So the devotion just arose naturally upon supplication or meditation, but nowadays it's declining a little bit. Think about karma. The Guru is bodhicitta. If you do not cultivate bodhicitta, you will fall into the lower realms. So think about karma. Think about the qualities of the Guru and the three jewels. This devotion will always decline, but you need to restore it over and over again. Faith, devotion is your own greatest benefit. If you lose it, it is your own loss. You lose your wisdom, awareness. So I think that it's important. It's for me. It is important to cultivate devotion. It is not for the person that I'm devoted to. Sometimes I'm not very mindful. What can I do about that? Think about karma. If you're not mindful, then you will become controlled by afflictive emotions and create more and more karmic imprints, and in the end, in the future, you will become completely ignorant, and the karma will ripen and experience the suffering of the lower realm. So think about that, and think about karma and the impermanence of this life over and over again. What's the essence of mindfulness, awareness? So it is mindfulness is the essence of the Buddha. If you're mindful and alert, that is the Buddha, that is the awakened mind, then you feel happy. Even if thoughts arise, they don't really affect you negatively. Otherwise, you create karmic imprints and defile the mind, so mindfulness protects your mind. The generation and the completion stages. Can you give a very brief pith instructions? What's the benefit of the generation stage? The outer world and all sentient beings are an example, are like the macrocosm of the world of the one person. So if you don't remember the deity, if you don't visualize, you will forget that. So the generation stage purifies the existence of birth. We train in the existence of birth, and the completion stage trains the mind in the existence of death. So the ultimate benefit of the generation stage is that it purifies the physical imprint, and the completion stage introduces you to the view, the actual nature of the mind. So there's actually no duality between those two stages.
这边请一些简单的讲解身体次第跟语言次第的要点所在。我们就说身体次第主要是要净化身体的习气，包括了对外在气世经跟对自己身体的这些不清净的习气，然后透过这个方法净化对身体所具有的光明分别以及相关的习气。久了呢，这样子修持久了，可以让自己忘掉烦忧的身，使身转化为本尊身。这个有助于净化身有的习气。然后圆满次第主要是净化死有的习气。最终而言呢，身体次第主要净化的是身体方面的习气，而圆满次第主要是能够认识内心的见地，这是他们主要的要点所在。
The generation stage is very meaningful. And so, as we mentioned before, the generation stage is primordially established. So this is the true nature of how things are. The outer world is exactly the same as your body. It consists of the 5 elements. Within the mind you have the 5 afflictions. So the outer world and the inner world are one and the same. There's no difference at all. And in the end, it is all empty and lacking inherent existence, and this is shown by the completion stage. Everything is compounded and therefore impermanent. Nothing inherently and truly exists. So it is like a training, a learning in how things really are. Everything that appears, the elements are the deity, and that is seen when you cultivate bodhicitta. Without bodhicitta, there is the appearance of the 6 realms of samsara temporarily. It is just like the seed of a flower. When it's unripe, that is samsara. When it is ripened into a flower, then it is enlightenment. So the generation, the completion stage, ripen the body, speech, and mind like a seed into a flower. And without ripening the seed, most seeds become actually spoiled. They never ripen and mature into a flower.
修身体次第的时候，它主要是要认识到，包括了这个世界上的一切组成，外在的物质组成，它的本性都是本尊的自性。当然，这是指你能够提起正念，具足菩提心的情况之下，五大种它的本性就是本尊自性。它是透过这个方法让你去观修它的心地性，这是一种修心的方法。你了解到，包括你自己的身体，一只小虫的身体，这个世界的组成都是由五大种所组成的，它的本性是清净的。那如果说你具有菩提心的话，就能够看到它本性是本尊是清净的自性。如果不具有菩提心的话呢，它就像是它就是六道有形众生的相而已。这是修身体次第的要点所在。然后再来呢，就是晓得了五大种的展现，包括了众生相，包括了外在气世间环境的相，它实际上都是唯心所造。最后呢，这一点实质性都没有，一点自信都没有。这里了解这一点，通达这一点的话，就是圆满次第的重点所在。所以我们透过身体次第观心地性，它能够使我们的心得以成熟，就像是有种子，它如果成熟的话，它就会开出花朵。就像透过身体次第，最终它能够结出佛陀三身的果实。但是如果没有让这个种子成熟的话，它所现出来的是不清净的，也就是六道众生的相。所以经由身体次第这个方法来做成熟，最后能够开出三身的花朵。如果没有这样子的修持的话，那个种子虽然在那边，但是最终也就是浪费掉了。
The qualities of the Buddhas are complete within all sentient beings, just like the qualities of a flower are complete within the seed. But so then when you enter the path of generation and completion, the seed that are containing all these qualities will ripen. So most seeds go into the garbage. Even though they possess the qualities, they are not apparent. But then if you encounter those stages of the path, then the seed grows into a sprout, and the sprout into a flower, which is represented by the qualities of the 3 kayas, and complete within all sentient beings in essence.
它需要透过道次第，也是透过像是身体次第、圆满次第等等的这些道、这些方便，来让能够 有潜力能够开出花朵的那个种子得以发芽。否则的话，如果只是有种子，但是没有去培养它，很多的种子都被浪费掉，好像就像你没有去培育种子，种子最后就变垃圾一样，就是糟蹋掉了。所以虽然有能够开花的潜力，但是呢是需要透过倒刺地，透过亲子之力，去修法，让它能够发芽，然后开花结果，最后才能够成就上升。
How do we cultivate the authentic true view? So the true authentic view is when you know the nature of the mind, and then habituating to that, you must remain undefiled by afflictions. Mindfulness and awareness is the authentic view. It is pure awareness, a wisdom that recognizes, discerns all thoughts and afflictions, and through recognition, all afflictive emotions become purified. If you are not mindful, the mind becomes impure. Then the purity of the mind remains lost, and the appearances of the six realms manifest temporarily in an impure way.
这边提到那个空正见要怎么实修，那就是说所谓的正见，指的就是对心的实相的了悟，也就是透过正知正念不放逸的方法去修持，能够认清妄念，认清烦恼，这个才称为正。正念的正的意思呢是清净的意思，就是将那些不清净的、属于烦恼的、妄念的这些成分给去除掉，不要让这个心的不要让本来能够有成佛自信的潜力被糟蹋掉。如果它被糟蹋掉，缺乏正知正念跟不放逸的功德的话，我们就会在六道当中流转，能够避免这样子的情形，能够去除烦恼和去除妄念的支配，这个叫做正，它是清净的意思。如此一来，才能够见到新的实相，甚至正见。
This is a little bit important. The authentic true view, what is that? That there's the two truths, the relative and the ultimate truth. The relative truth on the ultimate authentic view is to the relative bodhicitta. And then from the ultimate perspective, when you realize non-dual wisdom, you realize that we are inseparable. You realize the view. That is the authentic view. When immeasurable love arises, then you have recognized the authentic relative view.
世间正见跟出世间正见这两方面来讲，世间的正见主要就是能够升起慈无量心，这就是我世俗当中的清净正见。然后如果是胜利的正见呢，主要指的是无二的智慧，透过升起正确的世俗谛的正见，也就是慈无量心，逐渐的能够趋入六度波罗蜜多而现见无二的智，这样的话就能够真正的晓得胜利的正见。
So some Lama said that if you always rely on devotion towards the Guru, there's no need to meditate, there's no need to do any prayers. So what do you think about this? What's your opinion about this? So if you have devotion to the Guru, that is mindfulness. Mindfulness is emptiness. So it's hard to recognize what mindfulness is. But if you think of the Lama, then you can recognize mindfulness, because whenever you think of the Lama, you are mindful. So that is why the Lama or the Guru is always significant. That is why through Guru devotion we realize the view, the nature of the mind. When your mind merges in non-dually with the Guru, that is the uncontrived, non-dual, ultimate kind of devotion. So whether this is true for you, you can see for yourself by looking at your own mind. Whenever you encounter difficulties and you remember the Lama, instead of thinking about the difficulty, then this is a sign of immeasurable devotion to the guru. If you see if you're thinking of the guru doesn't really help, and if you see the guru as a human being, then thinking of the guru will not help you to eliminate afflictive emotions. True devotion is when a thought, an emotion arises, and you think of the guru. Then that also has the strength, the power to protect your mind from this affliction.
比方说你今天遇到问题了，你通过意念上师，这个问题就解决了，那么表示说你对上师的信心是确实达到了无有改造的信心。你透过意念上师眼前的这些困境，你就可以克服得了的话，那这是一种对上师有无有改造的、不虚伪的信心的一种标志。所以，如果你今天对上师的信心跟恭敬虔诚的心是没办法抑制你的烦恼，不足以抑制你的烦恼，就说明了你在这方面的见地还没有符合标准，它还不能够透过意念上师而去除过失跟烦恼，所以还有进步的空间。所以，到底适不适用这个修行方法，还是要取决于个人的状况。
We practice love and compassion. The view of Madhyamaka, do we have the wisdom of Madhyamaka? When we practice love and compassion, actually the meditation is emptiness infused with compassion. And this is how it is related to Madhyamaka. It is unobjectified, unconditioned compassion, when this feeling of compassion always remains without even having an object. This is unconditioned, unobjectified compassion. And within that state, there is no division between self and other. That is the view of the Madhyamaka. So at that time, we developed immeasurable compassion. It accords with the view of the Madhyamaka. Madhyamaka means, the essence of Madhyamaka is to not engage in any grasping with the mind. 悲心当中的三种悲心当中的无缘悲，它的本性就是空性，就是中道的正见。也就是在这个无缘而所生悲里面，并没有一个实质的生悲的对象，它也没有一个生悲的感受，实质的生悲的感受，它不随这些感受而转，它能够真正通达自他不二，真正通达自他的本性，如同虚空。这样子的无有执着就是中观见，因为中观见谈的就是不执着。 She gave many different instructions. So if you combine them into one, in terms of practice, what we practice, one essence is love and patience. Everything is complete within that. Yes. Some people, when they do prostrations in the Ngondro practice, their knees really hurt, so they can't do the full prostration. And some people, they want to eat vegetarian food, but then they get really weak physically. So then in those cases, what to do? So you do have to consider your health as very important. You don't have to don't force yourself too much, because you have a precious human body, and your health is important. But then with that healthy body, you need to cultivate love and patience, because that is what you bring with you in all future lifetimes. It is the cause of a temporary birth in the higher realms and the ultimate attainment of enlightenment. And if you don't have patience that protects love, then your mind becomes like a porcelain, like a glass cup that will easily break. It's like samsaric ordinary love. Now it's here, then it's gone. But the love of the Buddhas is boundless for all sentient beings, protected by the the ground, which is like patience. Patience is like earth, or like the ground. It is stable. It brings stability. In terms of the eating meat. So when you eat meat, then you eat the meat because you ate it in the past life. Now you eat it in this life. So it ate you, and now you eat it. It goes around like a wheel. This is like a karmic wheel. So now I eat it. Last life it ate me. But now when you pray to Chenrezig and cultivate faith and devotion and love and compassion, then their karmic obscurations become purified, and this karmic wheel, this cycle becomes interrupted. So there's these two kinds of meat. Actually, there is the meat of bodhisattva animals who took birth as an animal to nourish human beings, and then that becomes like medicine. But then there's other kinds of meat that make you sick and feel unwell. That's a karmic creditor kind of meat. So when you practice the Mani mantra with love, then it interrupts, it disrupts, or it severs this cycle of karmic retribution. But of course, if you have a choice and if you can refrain from eating meat, then that's much better, of course.
办法完全如素，那是不影响的。那些人情况人，抽到雅威有没有？那个所以呢，监狱呢，雅威有没有？去不了。
So what kind of practice, Dharma practice, exists to benefit your husband or your wife? So if you bring love from previous lives with you, then you will find a good companion. But if you do not find a good companion, then that is because you have allowed your love to become spoiled by jealousy and hatred or anger in a previous life. That's mainly the fault of jealousy, actually. So therefore, pray to Tara. And cultivate well love and patience. Even now that will be of benefit. But think that if negative things happen, then that's karma. Don't think, for example, this is a bad friend, this is a bad woman, a bad man. Then things will only get worse. It is karma. If it is a good friend, it is karma. If it's a bad friend, it's karma. The difference lies in love or jealousy. Due to jealousy, you end up lonely. So whenever it arises, eliminate it and cultivate love. That will even be beneficial in this life. And I guess the question was regarding what helps to find a husband or a wife.
完全取决于是否有慈悲心，以及是否心中有嫉妒心跟嗔心等的烦恼。要改变这样子的现况的话，应该要好好的发愿，好好的培养慈心悲心跟安忍心，然后也可以向至尊父母做祈祷。你应该要晓得说，现在我的状况没有一个好姻缘的状况，跟过去的业力一手果报成熟是有关系的。所以不要一直想的都是别人的问题，比方说这个就是我的男朋友不好，我的女朋友不好，你越是这样想，其实状况会越糟，因为你觉得他不好的，你会遇到一个不好的对象，跟自己所造的业有关，跟自己到底有没有慈悲心，到底有没有嫉妒心等的烦恼是有关的。如果你能够尽量从自己的烦恼、从嫉妒心去下手对治的话，对今生也可以产生立竿见影的帮助的。
In the Ganges Mahamudra, or in the sutra teachings, it talks about the empty nature of all phenomena. Or for example, the Heart Sutra says that too. But then the outer world and the innocent human beings, if they're all empty, so then why do we actually recite prayers and mantras? And there's no point, there's no benefit if everything doesn't exist. So everything is empty, which means that we believe in a self where a self does not exist. There is no self. That's the mistake. If you know that there is no self, it's fine that you don't do any recitation. But if you don't know that, if you know that, then you will have no negative thoughts of attachment, aversion, or ignorance. But the thing is that you do cling to the true existence of a self, and that causes you to accumulate karma with attachment, aversion, and ignorance. In order to purify this concept of a self, we cultivate love and compassion. When the self has completely disappeared and there's no more self, then you will realize what emptiness really is. Now we have a mere understanding of emptiness, which is, for example, you know that an ice block is water, and an ocean is water. If you know that ice is water, but if you throw it onto somebody's head, they will bleed and it will be painful. So even though you know it's ice is water, you have to melt it. So that's why the Buddha had accumulated merits throughout countless aeons to purify all these karmic imprints accumulated since beginningless times. So you start to cultivate immeasurable love by beginning cultivating love with your mother until it reaches all sentient beings, and only through that the self-grasping will disappear, and only then will you really experience or understand emptiness. Now you just know, you have an intellectual understanding of emptiness, but there is no benefit at all. It could actually be harmful because you lose your trust in karma. Yes, everything is empty. However, you still have a perception of a self. You still have thoughts of attachment, aversion, and ignorance. So only when that has disappeared, you really experience emptiness.
受限于贪嗔痴三毒，还是会造业，我们还是把这些东西当真啊。那么当真的时候，就会产生当真的习气。所以这一切的修法都是为了要把这些习气，把我执跟我执的相关习气给净化掉，然后才能够回到那个本来是空的那个境界当中。否则的话，你嘴巴讲空是没有什么太大的意义的。就嘴巴上讲空，然后说这一切都不需要的话，就好像说你今天看这一块冰块，然后说哦，它的本性是水，然后呢，大海的本性也是水。那对啊，两个本性都是水，那你拿冰块砸头，看看会不会流血？就是会流血嘛，你不可能这样子做。所以为什么会流血呢？因为你我执跟执着实有的习气仍在，所以它就会产生那个作用。即便它的本性是空的，它还是会有那个实在的作用产生嘛。为了要能够转变如同冰块一般的我执，佛陀花了3大阿僧祇劫的时间修持慈心跟悲心，他才让那个僵化的我执给消化掉了。所以我们也应该要跟佛陀同样的，从先知母念恩开始去培养慈心，乃至于对一切等虚空的众生都有慈无量心，这个力量才能够逐渐的让我们心中的那个无中生有的我执得到破坏。那个时候才真正懂得无我。你现在只是嘴巴上无我有没有用呢？其实不仅没有用，还有害。因为你的认知的所谓知识上的对无我的认知，反倒让你轻视业力因果。那轻视业力因果的时候，你就想啊，你认为的无我到底无我当中，你是不是有贪嗔痴？你是不是有自我？如果是的话，你嘴巴喊空是没有用的。
Mudra gave instructions on the fivefold path of Mahamudra and the 4 causes of taking birth in Devachan. And then among these, which one is more important to practice? The fivefold path or the 4 causes of birth in Devachan? Which one is more important for practice? So between those two, actually there's no difference at all. They're exactly the same. The fivefold path teaches how we overcome self-grasping in stages. In the Gelugpa, for example, they speak about the Lamrin Shembo and the Sakya, they speak about the Lamre, or in the Kagyu, we speak about the true ornament of liberation, and so the fivefold path of Mahamudra. About the 4 causes of Devachan also teach the same thing. They say first you need to cultivate bodhicitta. That's the first path of the fivefold path too. So everyone teaches that the one cause, the most important cause, is the support of bodhicitta. Also in the fivefold path, without bodhicitta, the other 5 stages are not accomplished. So basically, these 2 kind of practices really are inseparable. They are the same. But then it depends on your opportunity to engage in practice. If you have an opportunity to practice and focus on the fivefold path, and if you do not have a lot of time, then practice the wishing prayer of Devachan, the 4 causes of taking birth in Devachan. If you have no time to practice at all, just recite, just read the prayer of Devachan. That is actually, in essence, the same. Then in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we practice the channels, winds, and drops. Also, we have that in the Chinese tradition. So, what's the difference? So, there's a Chinese tradition and the Tibetan tradition. For example, in the Chinese medicinal tradition, is there a difference? I'm not sure about the difference. But in the Buddhist practice, all is connected to bodhicitta. If this tradition, the other tradition, also is connected to bodhicitta, then it's the same. But probably the nature of the channels and the winds and how we need to hold the winds at the navel is probably the same. So channels and winds at the central channel, which has its origin in the navel, which is the royal seat of the wind energies, and the body is like a kingdom, and the capital is the navel. So if that is being taught, then there is no difference between Buddhist or not Buddhist.
不过藏传说讲气脉主要是结合菩提心的修法来修的。如果说中医的气脉的观点在结合了菩提心的修法来修持的话，应该没有什么太大的区别。比方说从它的原理原则来说的话，像要持气在丹田或者持气在肚脐，其实大家讲的都是差不多的，并没有什么内道外道的区别。因为像是在藏传佛教里面所讲的脉气的修法，那个脉指的是中脉，气是指在中脉的中央位置，也就是中脉的首度，指的就是肚脐那个位置能够持气。我们的身体就像整个国土，然后呢，我们的肚脐呢就像是肚脐的位置呢，就像是它的首度一样，持气于此的话，就能够产生力量。这个是脉气修法的大致的原理原则。它在内外道方面没有什么太大的差异。从心态上来讲，有没有菩提心可能是一个差异。
The Buddhist view of the channels, winds, and drops is that when you cultivate bodhicitta, it becomes very powerful. So the bodhicitta and the deity, so we speak about the elements, aggregates, and sense sources, and that explain how these have the nature of the deity. That's why the body is so precious. So I'm not sure if another Chinese tradition or medicinal tradition actually also teaches that. I'm not sure. But the physical composition of the channels and so on is probably the same. But for example, when we train our bodies, we do that only for this life. But in the Buddhist view, we train in order to attain enlightenment, in order to become liberated in the first, second, or third bardos. In the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya, and so on. So here we explain the qualities of the three kayas, how from a seed a flower can ripen. So I'm not sure if that is exactly explained that way in another tradition, so I cannot speak about something that I haven't really learned. But in general, the Buddhist practice of channels, winds, and drops is really very meaningful.
脉气修法很重要的就是透过脉气修法结合菩提心的修持而承办本尊的法门。是这样的话，它的力量跟它所包含的范围是比较大的。那因为对方，那就是中医他们这方面的理路本人没有涉猎，所以不太适合做出评论。也就是说，也许他们对于身体方面，对于今生比较看重，对他们的见解是从今生健身的角度来看的。那当然，这当中脉气的修法都要涉及到自己身体组成的运输见这些差别，这是内外道共同的。但是，也许在中医当中比较讲究养生，比较讲究今生，把自己的身躯看得特别重要。但是佛教所讲的脉气修法，除了菩提心之外，还有要在将来的第一阶段中医、第二阶段中医承办佛果的必要性，乃至于将来于报身跟化身境界当中成就如同花朵般的三真境界，这样子的必要性都是佛教之所以要修脉气的原理原则所在。那么由于没有涉猎中医的相关的典籍，所以在此不便评论。那如果有相关兴趣的人，应该自己去做研究，就会晓得说中医在这方面有哪些特点，在见解方面有哪些特色，自己可以多了解。
In order to benefit sentient beings, to protect them. So when we cultivate love and compassion, kind of if we think we can do that, isn't that a little arrogant or prideful? But we do need to be a little bit, that kind of pride we need. Because if you understand the qualities of bodhicitta, it's not real pride, not real arrogance, because you know that you really can benefit them. When you see the ultimate truth, self and others do not exist, then you're able to see all beings as Buddhas, and you can be confident in that. You can see yourself and others as Buddhas. Now when you see yourself as an ordinary being, you think that I'm nothing, I'm worthless, but that's not true. All beings are actually Buddhas if you know the true nature of the mind. If you might call it pride, but it's actually a quality that you possess and that you finally acknowledge.
需要有这样强大的慢性。这种慢性跟傲慢是不一样的，因为它是在道德理性的工作之下的一种自信，它跟傲慢还是有区别的。也就是说，透过这种自信，透过了解无敌性的功德，最终我们能够通达圣义谛，也就是通达自他不二，了解众生性跟佛自性是无有差别的，同时也了解自己的性跟佛自性也是无差别的。现在我们心地比较低下，我们没办法相信自己就是佛的原因，是因为我们用凡庸的态度来看自己，就感觉自己好像没有什么力量，我怎么可能成就佛，诸如此类的。但是实际上，我们的心的本来自性是本来成佛的。等透过菩提心的修法，我们能够强化这样自信，晓得哦，原来真的我的自信就是佛。所以这种相信自己的自信为佛的这种慢性还是需要的。
Shao speaks about the union of emptiness and appearance, and emptiness and bliss, and emptiness and clarity. I don't really understand the meaning of this. Clarity and emptiness is that first there's this sense of me in the mind. Look at that first. So now it is the consciousness and the clear awareness that sees a self, that thinks it is a self. If we look at its essence, and then past thoughts stop and future thoughts have not yet arisen, mind becomes like space. There's nothing at all that is there. That is what we call emptiness. And then you know that there's clarity within that. That is clear awareness, that's clarity. Clarity, emptiness, the empty, clear nature of the mind is a nature that all beings, all life forms have. We all have the same mind. Even though they have different bodies, their minds are not separate. So first you need to understand clarity, emptiness. And you understand that when you understand that self and others do not exist. When you look at the mind becomes like space, and within space there is no two, there is no division. If you understand this, you understand the union of clarity and emptiness, or the clear empty nature of the mind. So at first between two friends, for example, so look at each other. First you think there is a duality, but actually there's just two bodies. Look at that first. So there's two bodies. So then if you don't have a mind, then what you do with the body will just become ashes. It is nothing. So then you look at the mind. First you have to look at your own mind, because you can't see the other person's mind. The basis of your mind and his mind is the same. The essence of consciousness, of afflictive emotions is the same. Can there be a division in mind? There is no division in mind. There's no duality. So when you see that, it becomes naturally like space, without any thought, but clearly knowing. When you know that within space there's no duality, no division, then you know that no matter how much you see on the outer level, it all has one ground. It is just like there's a lot of sources of light in this world, but there's only one light. This is how an understanding of emptiness arises first. So when you just think about the permanent nature of everything, and how everything disintegrates, it's hard to understand emptiness. But look at the essence of mind, of self and other first.
就是没有自他的区隔。你先懂得这一点，才能够真正晓得所谓的明空不二的空到底是怎么回事。比方说，两个朋友相处在一起，为什么会有隔阂呢？因为我执介入其中，我执的介入造成了认为物质的身是两个，身体跟身体是完全两回事。但是如果今天没有心的话，这个身体根本是不是两回事，就不是问题所在。那么，当你把关键移到心上面来谈的时候，你能不能看到对方的心呢？你看不到他的心，你只能往内去照自己的心。当你去往内照自己的心的时候，你会发觉，哦，我的智慧跟我的心里面的本性的那个智慧，跟他的心的本性的智慧其实是同一回事。他有烦恼，我也有烦恼；我有一颗心，他也有一颗心。所以其实我们没有那么多的不同，我自跟他其实不是两个对立的两回事，而是自他其实是不二的。如此不断的反复去了解自他不二，你的心才会开阔如同虚空。那时候你才晓得什么叫做明。我觉得就好像说，在这个世界上，凡是有电有灯的地方，电就是一个哪个地方的电都是电，哪个地方的灯火都是灯火，它们的本质是完全相同的。虽然它出现在不同的地方，但本性都是完全相同的。透过这个方法去了解，你才晓得所谓的空到底在哪里。那它中间的在外向上面的共性在哪里？那个共性才是你，然后了解这两者并没有自他的对立性，从没有自他二种执着的情况之下去了解所谓的明空双运当中的空，才会真正得到正确的了解。你只是一直去想空空空，这个没有什么太大的意思。大意。
最后一场的 Q&A 会在4:45的时候，请大家能够提前10分钟来，这样子呢对上师是非常恭敬的。好，那请大家休息。4:45，我们在4:45，请所有担任过志工的，不论你是交通志工、医疗志工，任何志工、乡际志工、清洁志工、场务志工，您曾经做过志工的，请您都到4:45的时候，请您都到这边来排队。我们 5:15到5:45会有一个非常温馨的荣福姐对我们志工的勉励，还有发礼物给我们志工我们还要唱歌给荣福姐听哦。所以呢，您只要担任过志工的，不论您是什么志工，还有都请您到这边任何一场法会都请您在5:15的时候来5:10的时候来这边排队我们会有最后半小时，我们还有传新灯